Hi, I'm Tim Gaffney, author of Dayton Beer, A History of Brewing in the Miami Valley, and this is part 3 of my virtual book talk about the history of Miamisburg's old breweries. In part 1, I described Miamisburg's settlement and early growth. The first mention I found of a local brewery was in 1837. The first mention of a brewery location was in 1848, on land now occupied by Miamisburg Civic Center. The earliest named brewer I found was Charles Schroeder. He had that brewery from 1848 to 1853. It's unclear how long that brewery continued. We know that lot was a coal yard by 1875. You can see the label for it on this map. In part 2, I described another brewery that was in business at least by 1860. It stood where Riverfront Park is today, between the Great Miami River and Water Street, midway between Ferry and Market, or what's now Central Avenue. The village knew it as the Miamisburg Brewery and Malt House. Its proprietor was a Bavarian immigrant named George Wilhelm Nusz, or William Nusz. Nusz ran the Miamisburg Brewery through the early 1870s. It must have done well because in 1873 he registered a plat for a new brewery south of the village line. Now here's the rest of the story about Nusz and his breweries, or at least as much as I've been able to learn from public documents and genealogical records. Nusz built his new Miami Valley Brewery between the Miami and Erie Canal and the foot of Mound Hill. The original plat map shows the location of the brewery, as well as a separate bottling house and a barn to the south. The land has changed since then. The canal that bordered South Main Street is long gone. Today the brewery site is a green space. It's just south of the Miamisburg Community Park's playgrounds and dog park. But if you walk or bicycle down the community park path, you'll go right through the middle of it. The exact location of the brewery is a bit of a mystery because of conflicting maps. This detail view from an 1886 lithograph of Miamisburg shows the brewery right against the canal, with buildings extending back into the foot of the hill. The railroad would have passed behind it, cutting through the hill as it does today. Later insurance maps show the brewery farther east, with the railroad running between it and the canal. But this lithograph view is consistent with a section drawing from the Montgomery County Engineer's Office that also shows the brewery closer to the canal. While other members of the Nusz family stayed in town, William and his wife Margaret lived at the brewery. Now in those days, it wasn't unusual for a business owner's family to live in the same building as the business, but it was a living arrangement that would prove nearly fatal to a later owner's family. Nusz's brewing business seems to have grown along with the village. Between 1860 and 1880, Miamisburg's population grew by nearly 20%, from about 1,600 residents to nearly 2,000. An 1880 book about America's beer industry listed the yearly output of Nusz's brewery in the late 1870s at about 1,000 barrels. George Wilhelm Nusz died on July 27, 1881. He was less than 2 weeks from his 56th birthday. Now, records show he was a brewer here at least by 1860, and he remained a brewer until his death. I haven't found any evidence of a competing brewery in that time, so records indicate Nusz was Miamisburg's brewer for more than 20 years, longer than any other local brewer I found. But Nusz's beer-making career might have started years earlier. His obituary in the Miamisburg Bulletin said he moved here in 1852, and it mentioned no other work before he started brewing. Nusz's funeral was a measure of how well he was known and how well regarded he was. The funeral took place at St. Jacob Lutheran Evangelical Church in the center of town. Mourners came from up and down the Miami Valley and filled the church. The Dayton Journal covered the event. The newspaper called it one of the largest witnessed here for some time. The Apollo Band of Hamilton, well known around the region, and played during the service. Margaret Nusz was the daughter of John Herman, a local farmer. Today, George Wilhelm Nusz and his wife rest under the Herman family monument one of the tallest in Hillgrove Cemetery. Among the many Miami Valley brewers I researched for Dayton beer, the Nusz family, for whatever reason, didn't keep the family brewery. Margaret remarried, and the Nusz children took different paths. In Part 4, I'll introduce you to the Miami Valley Brewery's later owners and tell you the final, fiery chapter in the history of Miamisburg's old breweries. In the meantime, you can order Dayton beer online from Amazon.com, either in print or as a Kindle ebook. You can also order it online from Barnes & Noble booksellers and pick it up at the store. When businesses reopen, you'll also find it at Carillon Historical Park in Dayton. Remember, read prodigiously, drink moderately, and wash your hands. Cheers.